Welcome to episode 11 of The Rational Hour on this rainy Wednesday, June 17th. After a bit of a hiatus, Kyle, your host, is back, and I'll be joined shortly again by Andy to discuss the upcoming U.S. Open, and later I'll talk about what's wrong with the Chicago Cubs, as they seemingly went from one of the best teams in baseball to a team that leaves a lot of people on base and just is really struggling, and even the White Sox are doing better than them now. We are joined by Andy this week, once again after a couple week hiatus, to talk about the U.S. Open this coming weekend. With a little more golf, as that is Andy's expertise. The U.S. Open is taking place in New York, correct, Andy?
Yeah, Shinnecock Hills. Really tough course.
Yes, and J.J. Spawn won it last year, and the last time it was at this location was in 2018. And Brett Koepka won, but who knows if he'll be playing this week with that hand injury he has. Do you have any intel on that, Andy?
I don't really have any info on the injury, but I mean,
He was through from the last tournament because of his hand injury. So
I guess I saw that. I just feel like I haven't really read anything about how severe it is, other than, like you said, just seeing that he's unfortunately not going to be able to defend his title.
Yeah, and we have another interesting note I'd like to point out is in 2004, Mr. Gosson beat Phil Mickelson on that Sunday with 11 one-putts on the green. I think it would be very interesting if Jordan Spieth would make 11 one-putts through the whole tournament. But
Okay, early Spieth shot, I guess.
yeah, just commenting on your favorite player, just gotta give you a little heckling time.
Well, Jordan Spieth is definitely going to need to putt extremely well to have any chance, considering his last start was the Memorial where he missed the cut, unfortunately, with a horrible second round. His putter has been, he says he's putting well, but the lid is just on the jar. But I mean, just see some putts fall. And honestly, he's had a year where he keeps like saying he's like playing well and all facets of his game are where they should be. And I don't really disagree with that, but like you got to put it all together at some point. But yes, Retief Goosen also just got second place at the Senior Tour Principal Charity Classic in Des Moines. Got beat out by Zach Johnson, but his name was in the news this weekend. Great player.
Yeah.
And you bring up your boy Phil. Not a good news week for Phil last week.
No, he is fighting it as usual, as expected. Sexual assault claim at his, technically considered his home golf course, is that what it is?
Yeah, his home club forever. 19-year-old and like inappropriate contact, which you can't be doing that. Plus, apparently this might not have been like his first offense. And I even read where like they came out on the course like mid-round to just kick him out. So it must have been like really bad.
Yeah, that's not a good situation for Phil. We will see what happens there if that comes about. Any other interesting names in the field this week?
I mean, I feel like the U.S. Open's one of those where it's so difficult. Usually the top guys are all in the mix. I feel like Scotty hasn't had a great year by his standards. I'll be interested to see where he's at. He already made a comment like last week that he had visited and said, if you're in the fairway, the course is playable, but if not, it's like impossible. The greens are like insanely hard. And he said you just like can't even hit out of the rough. So we'll see how that plays out. I'll be interested to see if Bryson is in the mix at all, considering his recent U.S. Open win and a couple of years ago, and the fact that he's kind of had a pretty bad year and he's had a lot of interesting comments regarding his game and his future with Live, with YouTube, potentially the PGA Tour. So we'll see. Otherwise, I feel like going into it, there's not any like huge storylines for golf other than the Phil stuff. And I saw Tiger just got back from his rehab. So yeah, I mean, it's obviously going to be an amazing week. I love when they play like the impossible courses.
Well, yeah, and I mean, even going back to Zach Johnson's comments from 2018, how he said it's just not really a playable course. It can be, especially I think he said in the afternoon, right? It's just not, it's really hard. Because Brett Koepka won it in 2018 shooting 1 over. So I think that just tells you how hard the course is.
Right, and I don't know, I mean, I get them playing could be really frustrated when it's that hard, and sometimes it feels like it's just like gimmicky. But at the same time, if they're all playing the same course and they're all the best in the world, just because the score isn't a good score for the win, it's still entertaining and like everyone's doing the same thing. So I get what they're saying, but I think the fans like watching at least one of these a year because most of the events the rest of the year are several under, and they're shooting several under per round. So,
Yeah, I
uh,
mean, it's definitely more entertaining, and as long as there's multiple people in the mix come Sunday, and I think that's really all that matters for as far as like the anticipation and how every shot matters. If somebody has a 5 to 6 shot lead, I mean, it's still not a very big lead, but if he hits one bad shot, it's not the end of the world.
I always hope that there's no runaways in the majors, just because, like you said, you want Saturday and Sunday to feel like several guys are in the mix, especially when it's a tournament where even par could be the winning score. So major weeks are always awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So who would you like to see in your other than obviously Jordan Spieth win the tournament? Who are some of your other favorites?
Man, I used to want Bryson to do well because I just thought he was like relatable and his YouTube channel helped. But he's kind of just made some interesting comments this year. It feels like he's not just like keeping his career simple to keep the fans like liking him. So
Yeah.
I'm not as much rooting for him this time around. Of the PGA guys, maybe I'm just so much of a Spieth fan. I'm not looking at anyone being like, man, I hope they really win. But I'm like not really against any of the favorites in terms of having a good performance. Obviously, I always like Rick Fowler. Would love to see him up at the top. I don't mind Scotty, especially since he's had a weaker year, but I like seeing someone else than him always up there.
Good old Ricky Fowler, is he still with Puma as his sponsor?
Yes, yep.
And his orange outfits and his bright colors, always fun to see. Um, I don't know, I like seeing Justin Rose do well. I think just the kind of older veteran who doesn't seem like, it seems like he should have won more than he has kind of thing, and just how he tries, and I think he's just fun to watch.
Yeah, I used to not be a fan of Rose at all, actually, and now I've kind of come around, kind of like you said. He's just so steady, and he's just a competitor. So I wouldn't be opposed to him being up there.
And honestly, the favorites are Scheffler, Rory, and John Rahm. John Rahm hasn't really done much this year either, though, has he? In terms of winning
No, he's
tournaments.
had a pretty bad year too. And again, I've never been a Rom guy, but he certainly has the game to win it. But I don't know. He seems to be like just always hot headed and quick to complain. Where I'm not a huge fan.
For sure, for sure. And then other people, just looking at the list here, there's not really anybody else that seems too interesting that I'm interested in watching.
Yeah, who's your
Other than that,
favorite? Or I should say, who do
I
you
like
want?
I would like to see Rose win, or I do like Morikawa too, although he's kind of struggled this year. But he had that back injury for a bit, I believe. I like Morikawa. I mean, Roy winning is always kind of fun, but I mean, he's won a lot, and I do like
Yeah,
change. I do like change as well.
I also would say Cameron Young. He's had a good year, got that the players, and then he won the PGA. So no, he didn't win the. Wait, did he win the PGA? No, he didn't. Who did? What tournament did he just win?
That is a good question.
He won the players, and then Aaron Rye won the PGA
Was it the Schwab tournament?
players. And, oh, he won the Cadillac. Yeah, he's had a good year. I would love to see him get a major though, and he's one of the favorites odds wise. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it will be an interesting time, that is for sure. And then, what's the major after this one? There's one more major.
British Open would be the final. Yep.
So, there's a little bit on the line there for people who want to win multiple majors this year, potentially, but we will see how
Right.
that goes. I think
Yep.
right
Should be
now,
good as always though.
Rory's the only one that's Rory, and the other one the PGA.
That was Aaron Rye, which is I don't mind him. I don't think he'll do it.
Yeah, and he's come on in the past year or so. It seems like he's kind of improved and been consistently getting top tens, unlike another person that was showed so much promise, 5 or 6 years ago.
Right.
Not gonna name any names there.
Hey, I mean, you can get all the shots in that you need to.
And Jordan Spieth sure does when he plays on the course. So. Okay, that was a little far. That was a little far.
That one was just too aggressive.
Well, we'll see how the play goes, especially on the early days on Thursday and Friday, and how that shapes up the field. And hopefully, come Sunday, people will be locked in a tight battle, and every putt will matter. And hopefully, that it would be interesting to see somebody break Mr. Goose's record of 11 one putts in one round. But it seems like those days might be behind us with how these courses are shaping up.
Yeah, I think they're gonna make it really difficult, which in a good way. And I hope that it's like even nothing more than like 3 to 4 under, but like even to 3 under.
Now, you think people are going to complain about pin locations, or is that just, certain tournaments would do that?
No, I think they will to a certain extent, but I mean, again, I think it's just part of the deal. Like you got to put them in the hardest spots. It'll depend. It'll be weather dependent too, depending on how dry it is. We'll see like where they're actually putting all the pins and how windy it is because it is kind of just wide open. But I mean, it's part of the deal. They shouldn't have them just like. I think there should be a few scoreable holes, but yeah, I want them. I want them to be difficult. Like your par is a really good score.
And I think another interesting fact is how many of the golfers would comment on the pin locations if they weren't asked about it. I think that's another interesting topic.
Yeah, I feel like obviously they like to like post round get the players to say things about the conditions. So they love asking, like certain holes or once they hear one person comment on a certain pin, they just kind of really lean
Yeah,
into
so
that, which I get it. But I, like you said, I wonder if they just let them talk about the round, how many would bring up certain holes, or would they more just bring up like, oh
so
yeah, I shouldn't have had the bogey or the double bogey.
yeah, I had a shot on 9 or whatever, and I hit it too fat or something like that.
Right. Versus like, yes, pointing out a specific green and a pin because I think unless they were the player to have a really good hole or yeah, like either one putt it or just birdie it or something, everyone's probably going to say the same thing.
Yeah, so it is the media. That is what will happen, though.
Right.
Well, thanks for joining us, Andy, and we'll look forward to having you back next week to talk about it some more, talk about the results, and we'll see if there's any other major golf tournaments, see if Jordan Spieth is still...
Let's hope that I can actually be able to talk about Spieth's play and that he doesn't just completely not show up and melt down and not make the weekend. So yeah, here's to a hard but good week ahead.
And the tournament will be on the USA Network in the morning, and then NBC and Peacock as well. It's a little different when
Yes.
it's on. A little different it's on USA. I feel like.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe it's been there a lot more this year, but usually I just watch the main broadcast in the afternoon if I do watch it. So.
Yep. And the Speed feature group, make sure that you check into that because he better be featured.
You probably have to play with one of the big dogs in order for that to happen. So.
Are you trying to say he's not the big dog?
No, he's not the big dog.
Wow. All right. Well, I'll make sure to let you know which day
Is
he's featured.
is this another tournament he's playing on a sponsorship exemption, or did he actually have a regular qualification for this?
Well, it's kind of twofold. Since he won, he's on it. You get 10 years exempt for the US Open, and he's on his 10th year, which is sad. But
Mm.
two, the top 60 and the official world golf rankings automatically qualify. And he's currently 51st. So he would have been in either way, but that 51st is making me a little nervous for next year. But let's not look that far ahead right now.
So if he's so, yeah, so he's 51st currently,
Yeah, right. So like if he didn't have the exemption from winning.
and he was 61, he wouldn't be able to play. Okay.
Right, exactly. And then you have to do the qualifier that was last week where it's like 36 holes in a day.
It does
Yep.
not sound like fun. Not sound like fun.
Yeah, no. It's always fun to watch, but it's they call it golf's longest day.
Yeah, definitely sounds like it. Well, thank you for joining us, Andy. And we
Thanks
will
as
be back
always.
next week.
Okay.
Cubs at the beginning of May were doing quite well, extremely well. They looked like one of the best teams in baseball. And not sure what happened. Offense stopped hitting. They were averaging like 7 runs a game, it seemed like, for the stretch there during their 2 separate win streaks of 10 plus games. And then they fell off a mountain, kind of, in a way. The pitchers got hurt, but really it's the offense that's been so bad. For 10 games, they lost 10 games in a row. Might have been 11 even. And that was kind of the telltale sign that it was going to be a bad stretch. Losing 2 of 3 to the White Sox, getting swept by Milwaukee and Houston at home, splitting at Pittsburgh, losing 2 of 3 to St. Louis, losing 2 of 3 to the Athletics, losing 2 of 3 to San Francisco, losing 2 of 3 to Colorado, finally winning their first series last weekend. At San Francisco, they won 2 of 3, and that was their first series win since, the sweep they had of Cincinnati May 4th through May 7th. The offense is just awful. I mean, it is awful. Bregman and Ian Happ have both left over 150 runners in scoring position. When you're not driving in runs, you're not going to win games. And really, the whole lineup, outside of PCA, isn't really doing anything. There's a lot of issues with that. Dansby Swanson is hitting like a $180. They asked the general manager about that, and he's just like, we put defense first, and Swanson is a good defender, but he's not going to, I think, ever recover offensively. He's hitting, as of after Tuesday's game, he's hitting a $175. And then, Horner was hitting 283 earlier in the year. He's down to 233. And PCA is the only guy hitting above 260, which is great concern. And PCA is hitting 276, and that's only because he's gone on a recent hot streak, and with his home runs, among other things. But, he also had an issue with a fan during the White Sox series, and said some things he probably shouldn't have, but since then he's been playing pretty much lights out and doing really well from the leadoff spot. But the rest of the team is not doing well, and that is definitely an issue. I'm not really sure what the fix is. It sounds like they're not going to make any moves, or too many major moves at the trade deadline, so that's just not how the team is built. Pitching continues to be a problem. Their starters are great concern, whether they're injured or giving up the most home runs in baseball. Shada, Imagina, and Jameson Taillon are doing terrible in that department. Matthew Boyd, still on the injured list. Taillon is now on the injured list. Edward Cabrera just got back from injury and didn't pitch that great yesterday. And Ben Brown has been the best starter for the Cubs, and over the past couple of years, wasn't really sure what his status was going to be. With the organization has probably been a real solid starter, averaging about 5 innings a game, giving up between 1 and 2 runs, which is pretty good for a starter. Consistently can get you 5 innings. His ERA is down to 174. Bullpen they did have injuries in the bullpen as well, but the Cubs are they're hard to watch. They're 2 games above 500. They were 3 or 4 games up on the Brewers at the beginning of May, and now we're here about 35 to 40 games later, and they are 8 games out of first place. Behind the Brewers that are 44 and 26, and the Cubs are 38 and 35. So it's not a good sign. And the rest of the NL Central, you gotta give props to St. Louis. They're 41 and 31. Or they're 40 and 31. They're 4.5 games back behind the Brewers. A lot of younger talent leading that team. Talks of they might potentially trade for Rafael Devers from San Francisco, so that will be interesting. The NL Central finally has a team that isn't above 500, as Cincinnati has struggled a bit as of late, and they're 3 games under 500. It doesn't look like their run differential is negative 52, which is not good. The Dodgers have widened their lead in the NL West, as they were 1 or 2 games ahead. Now that lead is up to 9, and the Dodgers are just so good all the way across the board. Their run differential is plus 143, and the rest of the AL West has a minus run differential, which isn't too big of a surprise, given how good the Dodgers lineup is with the likes of Shohei Ohtani, Kyle Tucker, Freddie Freeman, Andy Pajes, and Mookie Betts, even though Mookie's struggling this year. And the Braves are still running away with the East, and the Phillies are making a comeback as they are 6 games above 500 now after their horrendous stretch where they fired their manager and hired Don Mattingly, a former Yankees manager and Marlins manager. They're doing pretty well. Switching over to the American League, the Yankees are in first, but the Tampa Bay Rays are only 2.5 back, and the Tampa Bay Rays have the best record in baseball at home, as they are 24-9, which, if you do extremely well at home and play about 500 on the road, you should make the playoffs, and they are doing just that. And the rest of the AL East is below 500, and all three are 10 plus games back in the division with negative run differentials. The NL Central, which is very interesting as the White Sox have been extremely hot lately, and they're 5 games above 500 and tied for first with the Cleveland Guardians. And they lost their star rookie, Murataki Murakami, to an injury, but even with that, they're still playing extremely well. They got Colson Montgomery, they called up Brandon Montgomery, an outfielder who's done pretty well so far. The pitching has been pretty solid. I'm just a real surprised that the White Sox are in first place in June. A lot of people kind of didn't expect a lot out of them again this year. And Murakami was carrying that for a little bit. So then the concern was, once Murakami cooled off, what would the offense look like, and would they be able to sustain winning enough games to be in contention? And they can prove they have without Murakami for the past couple weeks. Detroit is still struggling, 9 games back, and talks are they're going to trade their ace pitcher Skubal at the trade deadline. We'll see how that goes. The interesting thing about the AL Central is basically they all have minus run differentials. The White Sox are at +2, and the rest of the division is in the minus, which run differentials don't mean that much. Because, you have a couple blowout games where you get blown out, that can affect the numbers, but it kind of tells, I guess, consistency a little bit. Then switching over to the AL West, the Mariners are in first place there, only 2 games above 500, trailed closely by the Athletics at 1.5 back, the Texas Rangers at 2.5 back, and the Astros at 4.5 back, even though they're 7 games under 500. And the Mariners, pretty good pitching, and basically they're adopting the piggyback method, which they're going to use through the All-Star break, as All-Stars agreed to, which is basically, the piggyback method is where you start one starter, then you bring in another starter on top of that. So people aren't going to get likely won't get quality starts or things like that, but it's to rest their starters a little bit more, where they're not pitching as much, and they can get more rest and things like that. So that's an interesting method, and we'll see how that kind of pans out for them. Luis Castillo has one of their star signings from a few years ago, really struggling this year. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of pans out through the All-Star break, and if they'll continue with that method after that or not. The Oakland A's are an interesting team as well, and they got Nick Kurtz. They had an entire 9-game series in Vegas, which the home runs were really flying because of the Vegas heat. Nick Kurtz had, I believe it was 5 home runs last week, and the only reason I know that is because I was playing him in fantasy, and that was not a fun experience. When you check the box score every night and you're basically have a home run every night of the week. I'm in a tinier ballpark, but we'll see how that goes. I believe that was just a short stint there, but we will see. But other than that, not too much going on in baseball. The Cubs can hopefully rebound a bit here in the next couple weeks, as they get one more series at home this weekend against Toronto Blue Jays, and go on the road to travel to New York and Milwaukee. And so that will be interesting to see if they can rebound a bit before the All-Star break, kind of how it would shape up the trade deadline for them, and just get their offense more consistent. Would love to see Michael Busch, Ian Happ, and Bregman, who we're paying over $100 million to start today. But time will tell on that, and hopefully, that happens. And that will conclude my podcast for this week. Next week, Andy will be back to talk about the results of the U.S. Open, surprising factors, things like that. And then I'll probably do second half on baseball again like he did today. But I hope everyone has a good week, good rest of the week, and enjoys the weather a little bit. And remember, if you have any questions or comments or suggestions for sports-related content you'd like me to react to, send an email to rationalhomer@gmail.com.